Welcome to the Timeless Marketing Podcast with Brian Kurtz, your connection to insights from some of the top direct response marketing minds on the planet.
Hey, it's Brian Kurtz here, host of the Timeless Marketing Podcast. Today's episode is a clip from one of the 2-hour calls inside Titans Xcelerator, my private mentorship program for direct response marketers. Before we get to that, I have one question for you. Do you have a marketing insurance policy? If you don't, you need one. And that's why I created Titans Xcelerator, which is one of the most giving communities and serves as the de facto board of advisors and marketing insurance policy for over 250 of the best and brightest direct response marketers, copywriters, media buyers, marketing agencies, senior executives, anyone in direct response marketing who is committed to growing and scaling their business. The bottom line, you don't have to grow your business alone. And you don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars either. Titans Xcelerator is 1/10 of the price of most groups of its kind. I know because I hosted a group that was over $20,000 a year. If you want to see how Titans Xcelerator can help you grow and scale your specific business, go to briankurtz.net/help. That's BRIANKURTZ.net/help. And with a private membership, you'll receive access to the full presentation from today's episode, along with the Q&A and discussion that followed. As an added bonus, you'll receive access to a vault filled with many more private calls just like this one. Again, if you want to see if Titans Xcelerator is a fit for you with no obligation, go to briankurtz.net/help. That's BRIANKURTZ.net/help. And feel free to email me directly. I respond to every email with questions about this episode or just to say hi at brian@briankurtz.net. Now on to today's episode.
Okay, I think Ben is on. Ben, I didn't see you there until now. Ben Settle. Ben Settle.
I'm here, Brian. Thank you.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How have you been?
I'm good. In fact, I'm going to talk about how you ended up here on this call because I read one of Ben's emails. You know, Ben emails once in a while if you're on his list. I don't know if you know that. Once in a while. And so he sent an email, and it was Ben. It was about not doing presentations. So I'll read it to you quickly. Sometimes when I'm asked to present something on a mastermind call or at a master class or to a group of paid customers or someone's audience, the host will ask what I'd like to do for a presentation. And Ben's answer is, I don't do presentations. Why not? Because they are probably the single best way to bore the hell out of everyone and the single worst way to get engagement. So Ben is here to bore us and to not get engagement, just so you know.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, right. And the thing that was interesting is that I commented on it and I said, well, Ben, I've been an exception and I always want to be an exception. So you come and present again to my group because you'll never bore them. And you'll be a big draw as you were. As you can see, we have 92 people on the call. A lot of people are not even members. Chris Mason decided to invite people from my online family, but not from the Titans Xcelerator family. And we got a bunch of people because you were speaking. So You're not, you're very humble in your El Benbo way. And I just want to say that, you have established yourself as really, and I've talked about you many times, as kind of the king of email. Not that everybody should do exactly what you tell them to do, but if they don't, you'll remove them from your list. But
only
the idea
the
of
ones who like Kim, maybe Kim I would remove. She didn't obey me, but everyone else,
everyone else, right? And you're promoting her as we speak, so it's
Absolutely.
interesting. So then Ben said we got into an email correspondence, and then he just said, "So how are you, Mr. Kurtz?" or something like that. And I gave him my update, and then I invited him to come on another call because he's been here, I think, twice before for Xcelerator. once with Doberman Dan, once alone. You were better with Doberman Dan. He kind of softened you a little bit. And so then I saw an email recently that Ben wrote, 15 ways to get better email inbox delivery, when Ben says that delivery is overrated. And then he got into all these things about engagement, which is what it's all about, as we all know. So I just, having Ben on this call, he wanted to talk about the obvious atoms, what you need to know about email, the obvious atoms way. And Obvious Atoms is a wonderful little book, very little book. That's Gary Bencivenga's favorite book. And so if the best copywriter in the world says that it's his favorite book, it's a good book. So I'm so happy you're here, Ben. A lot of people wanted to hear what you have to say, and then we'll get into a discussion on, but you got to lay down the law on what people need to do to get engagement with their emails. Also, I do want you to talk about your new platform as well, because you have a new platform that you've been working on for a while, and I want everybody here to know about it. Okay. So I'm so glad you're here, Ben.
Well, I'm going to say I don't have a formal presentation here because I don't do presentations.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought
I'll just have a discussion with you. I don't know if we can cover all 15 things in that email, but the whole thing with email delivery is kind of tricky because, first of all, let me just give one caveat. I'm not technically an email deliverability guy. The people who are the real deliverability guys are the people who get emails delivered in the inbox, who are sending the emails. Like our Berserker Mail platform we don't send them personally. We use an enterprise class sender that a lot of other ESPs use. Those are the guys that really understand this stuff. There's about 30 to 40% of delivery that a platform can help you with. This is stuff I didn't know this until I started my own platform, right?
Right.
I mean, I was just like everyone else, right? I'm thinking, well, there's all these things I could do. And there's a lot of stuff you can do, but there's also things completely out of your control. Okay. And that's why you need a good email sender, which most people probably do, right? Any of the reputable ones are good. So I learned a lot of this from my business partner, Troy Broussard, who, he's been in this game a long time. He's a Navy nuclear engineer, so he understands actual science and not like internet marketing science. Like if he didn't do real science, something blows up underwater. It was a big deal. And then he became the director of technology at Encyclopedia Britannica, where he was running like a $15 million department of programmers. So he kind of understands how programmers think and how developers think, how machines think. And he did a bunch of SEO stuff, so he understands how Google thinks. Like he just dominated in SEO for a while. And then he became like the guy for Infusionsoft and some of these other ESPs. And he was split testing a list of like 2 million people names. And there's just a lot of things he knows from that side. But even he will tell you he's not an email deliverability expert because there's only so much you can actually do. A lot of this is outside of our control. So I'm going to talk about the stuff we can control, right? So it won't matter what platform you're using necessarily. I mean, some are better than others, but for the most part, I'm going to talk about the things that we can all do. It's all in our control. It doesn't matter if you just started yesterday or if you've been doing this for 30 years, whatever, it doesn't matter. I just want to talk about the big things, the big sweeping stuff. How does it go? The whispers, the screams, not the whispers. That's what I want to talk about.
Right. And it's essentially on your 15, I think you say if you don't do the first two, then don't even read the rest of the list.
Oh, yeah. And the first two are I probably should say the first three that I'm going to talk about are the most important. Like and I've been doing this long enough to know what works and what doesn't just from an email side. But now that I see the data from the platform side, which is a whole other planet, the whole other universe, like I don't even completely understand it. We have people much smarter than me dealing with that. Like our chief architect, Pedro, this guy's like a savant. He talks to the people who get the emails delivered. And I was back and forthing with him recently about this. And he said of everyone on the platform, I get the highest delivery as far as they know. Right? I don't know how they can tell if you're actually in the inbox or spam folder, but I get the most delivered. And I'm going to talk about the stuff I do and that the people who also get very high delivery on our platform specifically do the same type of, they're not as aggressive as me, but they do basically the same stuff. So I suppose the first thing, this is going to blow everyone's mind, this first thing.
Yeah, I fell off my chair when I read this. I really did.
I want everyone to take notes. Tim, I want you paying very close attention right now. Okay. I don't want to see you dozing off. I want a notebook out, a pen out, and I want to see writing going on. And it better not be doodles, but it better be actual writing. The first one is just write interesting content people want to read. If you do nothing but that, and it's funny because I had this customer, he doesn't want me naming him for obvious reasons. And he was working with this client, and they were working with one of the bigger ESPs. And I'm not going to name them either because I'm not trying to tear anybody down. I mean, there's no perfect platform. But you would think that one of these platforms would, be a little bit more savvy about this. But this is the problem at listening to programmers and developers and not marketers, what I'm about to say. So they were telling him, and I wrote about this actually in the upcoming email players issue this month. So some people might already have it right now. Where they were telling him, his client, to do things to game the system for engagement. Like try to encourage people to, do this and do that and put a unsubscribe link at the top and try to game it. They literally used the word game engagement. There was no talk of, well, make sure you're writing interesting content they want to read, because that's 90% of the battle, as far as I can tell, is, in my experience at least, is being interesting. If they're looking forward to hearing from you, your engagement is pretty much set. Like they're going to be doing all the other things you want them to do. But what do most people do? Well, let me game the system. What is Gmail doing now? What does Yahoo want now? What is AOL doing now? What is Proton Mail? I mean, you could chase that all day long and you're just going to go crazy. And some people do, and that's fine. I'm not saying it's all bad. But why not start with the very basic stuff that everybody can do? You don't need a special course for it. You don't need to go to a seminar for it. Just be interesting. And how do I be interesting? Well, you have to understand your list. You have to know your market. If you don't know what's interesting to your market, that means you don't know your market, right? Like if you know what their pains are, what they're talking about. I mean, right now we have so much stuff going on in the world. How can you not comment on something that's interesting to them, right? It doesn't matter. So that's the first thing.
Also, Ben, to answer this, I think interesting is one thing, but knowing your market, you need to be interested at the same time. And I think you have a style, and I can't put my finger on it, but maybe you can, maybe not, because you're just doing it, but that you're interested in how they're going to react. And not only how they're going to react, but you're interested in, if they're not, if they're not going to be interested, and I made the joke that you'd rather them be off your list than reading it too. So how do you balance that? Because you're always interesting. I always agree. You're always going to write something interesting, but how do you work in being interested in them without saying, I love you, I love you, I love you?
Yeah, you probably never hear me say I love you to my customers and clients.
No, you don't. I do, but I'm a softie, right?
But, loving is never having to say it, right? It's just...
Ben, I want to say it. I love you, Ben.
Well, you know what? I'm fond of you, Brian. I really am. I'm very fond of you. So this goes... Okay, so this actually goes to the third thing. I'll skip the second thing for now. Well, I'll just say the second thing real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sell offers they want, right? I mean, it's the most basic thing in the world. But if you're selling people what they want, they're going to be more likely to engage, come back, probably buy your next product before you even create it. Right? There's all these things that work for you.
That's being interested. That's being interested in their welfare, right?
Yeah, in a way. But here's the weird thing, and this goes to your other question, right? How do you really know? Because people, buyers are liars. Right? People don't really, they do, but there's a reason salesmen exist, right? Remember Saturn, the car, they thought you could just come in and it was a price and you didn't have to be sold anything. And look what happened to them. They went they're gone. People need it. We all need someone to sell us, to show us the way, to lead and guide us, direct us, and all that. It's funny. I'm reading this book, I don't know how many books he's written by Joe Girard. I mean, this is his whole thing. Yeah. If you just apply Joe Girard to email, you'll never have another problem for the rest of your life. But and this is it. So the third thing I want to talk about was this idea of mailing every day, because there's so many people are very resistant to this. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're scared, if they just are lazy or whatever the reason is. I understand there's a lot of reasons. Okay. But you cannot replace with any kind, in my experience at least, there's no market research I've ever seen. And this spans so many different markets, not just business markets, but consumer markets like weight loss and golf and male health, like prostate problems and all that. Just every market I've ever been, self-defense, all these markets, it's always the same thing. The only real way to know your list is to be in contact with them on a regular basis. And they will tell you, now, not in so many words. I've never had it like in so many words. Now, I have a very large library of books I sell, very expensive books. Some go over $1,000. Okay, some are like in the $200 to $300. But no one once has ever asked for any of these books. Not a single time. For example, the latest book I just sold is about the design side of business and marketing. Now, nobody who knows me is ever going to accuse me of being Mr. Design. Okay, if you look at my sites, they're not. I'm not. And yet there is a lot of stuff I do about design that's kind of under the surface. And so nobody asked me, Ben, you need to do a book about design. And yet that was one of the best launches I've had, considering the esoteric nature of it. It did about twice as good as I thought. Nobody asked for it. I don't even think I even tried to get people that excited by it, because I just thought maybe 10, 12, 15 people would buy it and fine. But I got like almost 100 sales off that. Now, why did that happen? Well, I can tell you it's because they do tell me stuff. Over 20 years, my list has been telling me things without telling me. In the questions they ask, in the complaints they might have, what people say behind your back, or they think is behind your back, right? There's information they give you. It's a give and take relationship with your list that you can only get by mailing them every day, in my experience. And they'll tell you. And I'm telling you, nobody asked for email players. In fact, everybody, you mentioned Doberman Dan, he's had to apologize to me. He goes, Ben, I was the first one to tell you what a dumb idea that was, because the joke was on me. Well, it's not that, I had some like marketing wizardry going on. My market was asking for something, and I gave it to them in a way that both I would enjoy doing and that I knew they would enjoy consuming. Most of my list is Gen X and Boomers. Right? I don't really have a lot of millennial customers, and I probably have no Zoomer customers. Thank God. I can't deal with Zoomers. And that's good. They can't deal with me either. Right? So it's a thing. It's a win-win. My customers do like to read physical stuff. They do. My best buyers have always liked to read physical stuff as opposed to digital stuff. So to me, but I needed to mail them every day for a long time to figure that out. So mailing every day, writing interesting content that they look forward to getting from you. Like, Brian, I look forward to your email every week, every Sunday. Comes in at 3 a.m. my time, like clockwork. And I'm always like, I wish this guy would mail daily. I wish Brian Kurtz would mail daily. And one day I'm going to try to sell you on this. I swear I'm going to get you and Chris together, and I'm going to do something. I'll bribe you into it or something. But whatever. Everyone has their own appetite for this. But I'm just saying, if you do it daily.
Yeah, no, I got you. You're always, I always on a hot seat when Ben is here. So yeah, thank you, Ben.
I will bribe you if I have to. But the reality is this. I really do think everyone should be mailing daily. I think you should be mailing in content they want to read. More people are focused on this gamesmanship stuff, and I don't agree with it at all. I mean, I think it's just silly. But I think that if you understand your list and you mail them daily and you know what they want to buy, and maybe you won't know for the first few attempts. If you have a new list, maybe you won't know. It's going to take time. This is a good reason to mail them daily. Find out. There's nothing wrong with asking them questions. It's I don't personally do what I'm about to say, but I'm really considering doing it. And that is, when somebody opts in, I've often thought of having, hey, if there's something you want me to write about, tell me. Right? Now, again, buyers are liars. I don't believe a word anybody says to me when they outright because I've been burned too many times. I've created in the old days, I have created offers based on what people said and nobody buys, right? Because it's not really what they're buying. It's kind of like in the golf match. That was an interesting time. Everybody will tell you in every single survey, everything. I mean, 90%. I need to be more consistent. Nobody's buying golf courses on being consistent. They want to know how to hit the damn ball 500 yards, right? They want to impress their friends, and they want to do crazy stuff during the short game. And that's fine, right? But I don't trust surveys at all. In fact, I've seen many, many, many businesses get burned by surveys, including the Gap. They got really burned by surveys a while back. And I'm not saying they're useless. So if Ryan Levesque listens to this, no offense to my buddy, but I think he does it a little more intelligently than most people do anyway.
Yeah, and we did it often at Boardroom, and it was more. It's dedicated to buyers multi-buyers of books and what other books they might want to buy. Very select, just to get a sense. And we were able to weed out the dogs more than we were able to predict every book that would sell. But weeding out dogs is also a good thing to do in surveys.
You know it is. And if you're going to ask someone what to do, and this is a great way for even, this is probably how I'll word it if I do it. I just don't like answering. Like, I got so much going on. I don't want to answer questions. I'm like terrible at this customer service thing in some ways. Not the important stuff I drop.
No, you send an email every month saying to people that they're being charged for e-players. I don't know a lot of people who do that.
Well, I mean, that's the way. That's just what works for my.
Yeah, and they stick longer. They're not in there. They're not being. They're not just letting it charge and letting it go. They're focused on the subscription. And again, your philosophy, you're so consistent. And that's what I love about you. Consistent and congruent. Because you basically say, if you don't want this, I don't want to send it to you, right, even if you're paying, right? Yeah. So I'm going to let you know every month that this is being charged to your credit card, and you tell me if you want out. But most people would say, oh, let's until they notice, and then they'll leave us. You don't want to deal with that shit. And I respect you for that.
Well, I mean, why would I want someone who doesn't really want the product, right? Like, they're just wasting their money. They're wasting my time.
Well, most people in your shoes, though, they'll say, well, I'm going to collect their money until I can. And you don't want to play that game. And you're not the norm. And that's why everybody wants to come on a call and listen to you, because you're not preaching to people who are converted to that. Yeah.
No, it takes a while for people to. They have to work up to that. And when they do, they're always like, yeah, I should have been doing this the whole. Like, I really believe, and this is just for subscription offers, because right now, and this is what I've been hearing at least, and I'm pretty sure this is across the board, subscription offers are just dying right now for a lot of people because they never learn the fundamentals, right? They just promote it during, and this has nothing to do with email necessarily, but all they are is they're good on Facebook or they're good on Twitter, and they've got a $5 Substack, and like, wow, but that's when everyone had credit money to throw around. Now everybody's getting very discerning, and they should be.
Exactly.
And they're just dropping like flies, and I'm not. And people I know aren't. And I think that's the difference. It's like you have to be willing to curate. You have to be able to say, here's who I can help. Here's who I can't. If I can't help you, here's where you should go. Maybe it goes back to trying to get a no from people, but I don't know. I'll tell you this. When it comes to the survey thing, I wanted to just throw this in there. The best question I've ever asked, and again, I'll probably do this in my own emails for the welcome email or something, because I think this will be interesting. What was the last product about XYZ that you bought, or the last two products? Now you know what they're buying at least, right? And you can go look at the ads and, okay, here's what they did. But really, the best information I ever got was just talking to them. Not talking to them, but it's like a one-way conversation, which is me talking to them. But the way people react, they will give you information. You will know what they're going to do and be able to feel and interpret it before they even know. And that's really cool. It's cool in some ways, but it sucks in another, because if you spend a lot of time on the ad and no one reads it, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. How did you just read the ad? Well, because you want them to read the ad, right? Because maybe it's not for them. How many times do you get a customer who shouldn't have bought and they bought anyway because they got, for whatever reason, you did the email right? I mean, it's a good problem to have, but ultimately I kind of don't want that, because I can't help them. They're not ready. And I have a policy where I don't let people back. And so, I'm thinking long-term, long game for them.
Yes.
And so, I don't know. There's probably a lot of psychology to that, but
there is. And I'll add to that, it's sort of like, I always say that, when you're selling the first year subscription or membership, you're actually selling the second and third and fourth year at the same time. And everybody knows on this call, and you're the same way, that, to me, it's all about the renewals. It's all about the people who are going to stick with you through thick and thin. through growth your email player. I mean, I've been getting your newsletter now for a few years, and it just builds, and they're growing with you because you're learning new stuff all the time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And so I think that, selling hype and selling initially, it's like how you sell is how they're going to respond. And while you sell aggressively in your emails, just looking at your stuff, for instance, you sell aggressively into e-players, but you do it in a way that leads them in with examples, with stuff that's going to be in. You don't give away a free issue like we did at Bottom Line Personal, but you do give enough information that if they're going to subscribe, they know what they're going to get, and they're going to get even more because you're going to over-deliver over time. So I think you're having your eye on the prize, which is long-term subscribers that you don't have to keep reselling, is always critical when you're selling the first year. And Robert Scrobe talks about this in his work, and he's awesome. Yeah. And Ryan Lee's talked about this in his work on continuity. I mean, there's a small group of people that get this, and those are the people we have to follow, including you.
Well, I mean, I think of it as the long game, right? It just, American corporations are notorious for being very short-term thinkers. That's why they make such dumb decisions. Like, you watch brands just dying. Like, how do you kill Star Wars? How that's possible? But it happened, right? It's happening to Marvel. It's happening to DC. It's happening to certain beer companies right now because they're thinking very short-term. The long game, that's what they do, like in Japan, in China. Like, they're thinking long, 5 years, 10 years, not 5 months, 5 days. And I think that's the way we have to be. I think we have to, like, I want people forever, as long as I'm doing. In fact, if I ever hang up my computer and say, I'm not doing this anymore, I hope, this is my hope, that there's just people that get mad at me. Like, that's what I want. And who knows if that'll happen. But I'm finding that it's funny because I try to keep each issue to like 20 pages. Really, it's 17 plus like 3 pages of ads that I hope are entertaining people. But lately this year, it's like I don't know, there's something in the air. There's stuff going on with the economy. There's something where I have to do more than that. So I'm writing double-sized issues, and I'm probably losing money some months. I don't really care because I'm thinking, how can I serve these guys? How can I serve Kim? That's what I think. How can I serve Kim and Brian? That's my YouTube. That's all I want to help. But if you think of it as a servant, right? And I'll tell you what, this is going to sound very Pollyanna-ish, I hope, because that's what I'm going for, because I think it works. And I wrote about this in January. Mr. Rogers he's the model for this. He's the framework. Everybody grew up with Mr. Rogers, right? But I've been having to watch Mr. Rogers daily since I had a son. So very familiar with Mr. Rogers. And I can tell you, the guy was a certified genius. I'm just like, wow, I'm taking notes watching his show because he was so good. Last time you had me on, I was talking about world building. Like, this guy's like the master. He could have been bigger than Disney if he didn't want to be a nonprofit, right? And his whole philosophy. And I think this goes to email. Everybody should have a philosophy, right? Now, his philosophy is being a good neighbor. Like, he eat, breathe, live that philosophy. He was such a good neighbor that he was dying of cancer. He would still go speak, even though it was hurting his health, and it probably shortened his lifespan by like 5 years. He didn't want to not do what he thought he had to do. And I think about that a lot. I think, what is someone's philosophy, right? Now, everybody has a different philosophy, but philosophy is a big deal. Now, that will show in your emails. Now, you have a philosophy that people like and that they gravitate toward. My personal philosophy is giving options for thinking differently about things. That's it. I don't even care if people agree with me, quite frankly. I know you're joking, like, oh, I don't get rid of people for disagreeing with me at all. Actually, I like it. It's
No, you encourage it, and it's the people that aren't listening to your common sense. But when you're giving an opinion, that's not common sense. It's an opinion, and you want to have people have contrarian opinions.
Well, I mean, it's the whole scientific method that somehow went out the door. You're trying to break things. I want people to try to break my ideas. That's how you get better. I've had to break my own ideas so many times and change things and all that. And it's an ongoing process that'll happen forever. But if you do that, and if you have a philosophy, whatever that philosophy is, and everyone's going to be different with this, I'm telling you, your email list is going to gravitate toward that. They're going to find that interesting. And you don't have to tell people what it is. It's an intention, right? It's just an intention that, like, you have a very, very specific philosophies. Your philosophies are so obvious. They're just this really hardcore, fundamental direct mail applied to everything. That's what I get out of it, right? And it's all sound, and the young people probably roll their eyes at it, I'm guessing. A
lot of them do, and hopefully they may keep reading as medicine. Yes. I remember when I went to Underground, it was like the last Underground that Yannick Silver held. It was like the 9th of the 10th or something. And it was the first time I got on a stage with like a lot of online marketers, people who had no idea about that there was anything in marketing before the internet, that there was anything in marketing before email. Yeah. And as soon as I said the word direct mail, I wasn't my presentation was not about direct mail. It was about direct response marketing principles. And I said, how paying postage made me a better marketer. And I could see, it might have been 1,000 people in the room, 600, whatever. Half the room was like, they didn't walk out. But right. I felt like they just like, oh, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But the other half are people that, and I'm not saying I was swarmed when I came off the stage, but I did get a lot of feedback that they hadn't heard that before. And so the fact is that when you do talk from that perspective, it actually got rid of people. I think they should have listened, but I can't convince them to listen. But I'm fine with that too. I learned that from you in a way, and I learned it from Marie Forleo. Marie Forleo says, you talk about curating your list through your content. Do it because you can't be all things to all people. And if you try to be all things to all people, you'll have a wishy-washy list. They'll never buy anything from you. They won't stick around for multiple years. It's not a long game just by being wishy-washy.
Thanks for listening to the Timeless Marketing Podcast with Brian Kurtz. Visit briankurtz.net and click podcast at the top of the page for a full transcript and show notes. If you are interested in working with Brian personally inside of Titans Xcelerator, go to briankurtz.net/help to see how Titans can help you grow and scale your business. That's briankurtz.net/help.